So I figured it's probably time to do, if I had to guess, my most requested video ever. And I'm not really exaggerating either. I've quite literally been asked this for years now, and that's how I make my wood spoons. So if you didn't know, my spoons are actually turned on the lathe, or at least sort of. About 75% of the process is spent turning, and then after that it is a mixture of power carving and of everybody's favorite, sanding. But overall the process is fairly simple and pretty straightforward, so today I thought I'd bring y'all along and show y'all how I make my most popular seller, and that is the 12-inch cooking spoon. So let's get started. Now, my first little quick tip when it comes to making spoons is if you plan to do any sort of reproduction work, say for gifts for friends or family at Christmas time, or even try to sell them, you want to make yourself some templates. These will be your best friends. So one thing I recommend is when you do this, go through try some different shapes and sizes, see what works best for you, and then go back and make some templates, whether it be from cardboard, paper, or what I have here. I have a little laser cutter inside, so I took some 1/8 inch plywood and made these for myself because I actually wholesale these for my business. So these are made for my work, but highly recommend just take some time to experiment, see what works best for you, and then make some of these. Now when it comes to wood selection, there are three that I typically use. Well, actually they make up 99% of the utensils that I make, and that's cherry, walnut, and what I'll be making today's spoon out of, maple, or really this is seems like some pretty figured maple, but either way, those are the three that I typically stick with. Now, I find those three are the perfect combination of affordability, durability, and then overall attractiveness. Now, also, if you plan to sell them, I like offering a variety like that because depending on the customer, they can choose their favorite tone of wood. But yeah, and I also will experiment every so often with some other woods. Something like sycamore is really nice to work with. Beech or birch is also really nice to turn. But then also, if you get the opportunity to work with them, I highly suggest working with some fruit woods. Something like Bradford pear. I've made some really pretty spoons from that. Also plum wood. I've had like 1 or 2 opportunities to make some utensils from that, and that is some beautiful wood. And then also apple wood. Those are awesome. I just don't get much of a chance to work with those. And also, typically I will stay away from exotics. I don't know much about them. And then my company is called Carolina Grain. And the reason why is because I typically like to stay with woods that I can at least get around this area in the Carolinas and just the East Coast. So yeah, now I've got my templates marked up and laid out. Let's get them cut out and we can get these things on the lathe. Alright, so now that we've got the blanks cut out, it's time to mount them on the lathe. But before I do that, I want to go over just a few things real quick. For starting off, this right here has been a game changer for me. It is the safety drive center or something called like that. I'm not exactly sure what the name of it is. I got it off of Wood Turner's catalog. But yeah, first and foremost, the front, that's what I use here. Now for the second, I have a cone center here, but I recommend having one of those. I can't exactly remember the name of it. Also, I'm terrible with technical names, but it's the one with the flat tip and a little point on the end here. I did have one, but kind of dropped it and it broke. So I'm stuck using the cone. The cone will work just fine, but just personal preference of mine, I like the other style with the flat tip here. But yeah, so that's what I recommend for these two centers here. Now when it comes to actually mounting the blank, I don't do the traditional style of where I just go center, both horizontal and vertical. For the handle portion of the here, I actually do just keep it normal. I'll mount it in the center. The top portion of the bowl here though, I will actually mount pretty close to the top here. And the reason why is if you turn the handle like you normally would, when you go to turn the bowl, you're going to have a dip, a drop down from the top here where it actually meets the handle portion. Now, if you like that style, by all means turn it between centers. But I don't. I want the top part of my handle to meet or be even with the bowl portion here. So what I have found after doing some experimenting and testing is if I drop this, instead of having a flat horizon line like this, I actually drop it like that, so that way the handle meets it even. But yeah, so again, I highly recommend just experimenting. This is a process that you really want to take some time, have some fun with, and just see what works for you. Like I said, that's something that I do. You don't have to do that. Obviously, you can do whatever you want to do, play around and have fun with it. So anyways, let me get one of these on the lathe here. Let me go grab my mask and let's get these handles turned. All right, well, that is it for the handle. Now, there is a little bit more finessing work to do, but that'll all be done off the lathe. I'll have to clean up where the tip is here and also where the handle meets the bowl. But as far as the turning portion goes, that's it. Like I said, it is fairly simple. Now, it is a little sketchy with this big bowl portion flying around here and then also have it kind of being off center in a way. It's a little sketchy, but if you just take your time and practice, I promise you it's really not that bad. It's a little intimidating though. But yeah, so from this point on, I will just take this off and then move to the bowl portion. But I'm gonna get this other handle turned before I do that, so that way I can knock it all out at once. And then also, as far as the sandpaper goes, I just used this 80 grit strip here. It's about 8 inches by 1 inches. And I just clean it up. It's more or less just to get tool marks off. I don't worry about making it feel nice and stuff right now because I'll be doing some sanding later on once it's all done. So to save time, I just use this to kind of finesse the shape a little bit and, like I said, to clean up any tool marks. So anyways, I'm gonna get this one off here, get that other one mounted on and turned, and then we can move on to the bowl portion. So this is just the reality of working with rough material like this. There are a few bug holes here in the wood, and normally what I would do is take that, clean them up, fill them with some black CA glue, and they'd be fine. However, just for the sake of the video, I'm going to set this to the side and I'll come back to this later. So let me get this one off here and let's get the bowl turned for the other spoon. So you've seen the template that I use for the outside shape, but you cannot forget the inside shape, or what I've been calling the bowl. Now for my spoons, I have this circle jig here that is the same size circle shape as I have for my outside template. And it's just about 2 3/4, 3 inches, somewhere around there. Now, you're not tied to doing something this size. I do bowl sizes that are bigger and some are smaller. For example, some of the bigger ones I also will do them deeper than what I'm normally doing here. So they're made for more like, say, soups and serving spoons and that kind of thing. And then also the smaller ones are great for coffee scoops and that type of spoon. But this is my general everyday cooking spoon, so I found that 2 3/4, 3 inches is a great size for that. But also it just lets me lay out where the bowl will be on the spoon. I just take this circle here and I center with the handle here, mark it out, and then that gives me a general idea of the boundary, I guess you can say, of where I need to knock this top part off here. So I'll do that, I'll mark that up, and then on the bandsaw I will also knock this little knob off. And the reason why I do this is, like I said, I do wholesale and do these for like craft shows and that kind of thing, and this just helps me stay consistent, and that way my sizes don't really vary that often. So yeah, these are also needed as much as your other templates are. Okay, so I'm gonna get this thing marked on here, go cut it out, and then I'll show you how I put these on the bandsaw. I'll show you how I put these on the lathe. Alright, so I have gone ahead and got the spoon chucked up and ready to go. And as you saw, I actually do take one of the jaws off the chuck here. That way it's only 3. And that reason is because the way I go on and cut out the spoon template or spoon blank there, I actually curve into the handle. And so with that curve being there, it does not allow the 4 jaws to securely hold onto the wood. So what I've done is just learn that taking off that 3rd jaw allows the chuck to hold onto the spoon blank really well and securely. But yeah, it is intimidating. I will say that when you turn this thing on for the first time, it is quite literally like a propeller. It's kind of crazy, but it'll be fine. Take your time and just take it slow. I guess that's what take your time is. Either way. And then also I feel like I need to address the elephant in the room, and that's the sliding motor. If your lathe does not have a sliding motor, I've got 2 options for you. And first is make the handle to the size of your lathe. Now, if you have something that just has less capacity, you can always make the handle shorter. And things like coffee scoops, rice paddles, those kinds of utensils, they're perfect for shorter handles. And then also though, you're not limited to just turning the bowl out of the spoon. You can always power carve it or hand carve it, whatever you want to do. I used to use the wood burrs, the carving burrs, those kinds of things, to carve out the bowls of my spoons, and it worked fantastic. It was awesome. And also it gives you a little bit more creative freedom. You're not limited to just a circle there. So that's something to explore and look into. And also, if you'd like to see me make a spoon in that way, let me know. But yeah, I'm gonna get the tool rest set up and ready to go, get this thing carved out, and then we can move to the outside of the bowl. Now to sand the bowls, I just use these 2-inch mandrels. I believe that's what they're called, or sanding pads, whatever. And then obviously the 2-inch disc. Now I actually use 2 3/8-inch sanding discs. I get them from Vincent's Wooden Wonders. I always link them down in the description if you want to know. And I use the 2-inch gold max disc, starting at 80 grit to 120 to 180 to 220. I will finish off the spoon at 320, but there's one more step I have to do before I get that, and I just use my power drill to sand it. Alright, so it's been a few days and it's time to finish up the spoon. The other day I was able to get the inside of the bowl carved out and sanded here, and then get the handle turned. So the only big portion that's left to do now is to get the outside of the bowl shaped, and to do that I use an angle grinder. Now to shape the outside, I don't use the sanding disc that's currently attached to the angle grinder. I actually use a 60 grit flat disc, which I can't think of the brand name off the top of my head, but I'll link it down in the description below. I've been using this brand for years now. They're fantastic, they last really long, so that's actually what I use. But before I do that, I actually take the spoon back to the bandsaw and knock off these harsh edges here. It just helps save time, saves on the flat disc. But I will say up front, you do not need a bandsaw for this at all. You can, if you want to, just go straight out like this. I used to do that for years before I had a decent bandsaw. So that is a possibility if you don't have one. But yeah, and also if you would like, I've done this also in the past. I have turned the outside of the bowl here similar to how I did the inside. Personally, I wasn't crazy over it. I didn't really like it. I felt like I didn't have enough control over the shape and stuff like I would with the angle grinder. So I did that a few times, just wasn't crazy over it, and I don't do it anymore. But try it out. See if it works for you. See if you like it and it's what you want to do. As most of my videos, as I always say, just experiment and have fun with it. See what works best for you, because what might work for me might not work for you. So anyways, I'm going to go knock off the edges on the bandsaw, get the flat disc on here, and let's get this thing shaped up. Alright, well that is it for the initial sanding, and I just sanded up to 120 grit. As far as other grits go, for the belt sander, I just use an 80 grit, and that is just to help me get some of those deeper scratches from the angle grinder. And it also helps me finesse the shape a little bit more. And then from there, if it's a dense, harder wood to work with, I will start with an 80 grit on the orbital sander here and then work up to 120. But if it's kind of an easier wood to work with, I'll just go straight to 120. And then after that, I've got to raise the grain. And so what I'll do, whether it's one spoon or multiple spoons, I'll just put them in the sink and let the faucet run over them for a few seconds, making sure that the entire surface gets wet. And what this does is the water will get down into the pores of the wood, brings up any loose fibers or dust. So when you go to do the final sanding, it makes it a smoother and more clean surface. Now, like I said, I do this before the final sanding. If you want to go the extra mile, you can do this between every grit. I found that it's a little bit of overkill, but if you like to do it and you want a really nice finish, then I say go for it. So with that said, I'm going to go do that now. I'm going to go let this dry overnight. We can get back in here tomorrow where I will do the final sanding and get some pull in this thing. Alright, well that's going to pretty much wrap up things here with this spoon. I am going to let this tongue oil dry overnight, and then tomorrow I will come back and put one more coat on it, and then after that I will put just one coat of wax on it just to kind of seal things up. So that's going to do it for this one, but before I go, I do highly recommend giving this spoon making method a shot. And of course, if you do, let me know in the comments below how it went. And then also, of course, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to help. And like I've said multiple times throughout the video, this is really a fun method or technique or whatever to kind of experiment, have fun, and just see what you can kind of come up with. So I look forward to hearing about those. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. And as always, if you did enjoy this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel a ton. And then also something a little different this time around. If you'd like to help out the channel just a little bit more, I will have this spoon available on my website if you'd like to check that out. I'll link that down in the description below, no pressure. So if you've made it this far, again, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate that, and I will see y'all next time.